Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Yogah Karmasu Kaushalam.
Types and formats of report. Hello students, today we are going to study report writing in detail. Let's start our session with the outline. What is a report? Types of reports and also understanding format of a report. Let's move towards the introduction. A report is a written account of something that one has observed, heard, done or investigated. It is a systematic and well-organized presentation of facts and findings of an event that has already taken place somewhere. Reports are used as a form of written assessment to find out what you have learned from your reading, research or experience and to give you the experience of an important skill that is widely used in the workplace. In academia, there is some overlap between reports and essays, and the two words are sometimes used interchangeably, but reports are more likely to be needed for business, scientific and technical subjects and in the workplace. Whereas an essay presents arguments and reasoning, a report concentrates on facts. Essentially, a report is a short, sharp, concise document which is written for a particular purpose and audience. It generally sets out and analyzes a situation or a problem, often making recommendations for future action. It is a factual paper and needs to be clear and well structured. Requirements for the precise form and content of a report will vary between organization and departments and in study between courses from tutor to tutor as well as between subjects, so it's worth finding out if there are any specific guidelines before you start. Reports may contain some or all of these elements: a description of a sequence of events or a situation, some interpretation of the significance of these events or situation, whether solely your own analysis or informed by the views of others, always carefully referenced, of course, an evaluation of the facts or the results of your research, discussion of the likely outcomes of future courses of action, your recommendations as to a course of action and conclusion. Not all of these elements will be essential in every report. If you're writing a report in the workplace, check whether there are any standard guidelines or structure that you need to use. Let's understand sections and numbering. A report is designed to lead people through the information in a structured way, but also to enable them to find the information that they want quickly and easily. Reports usually, therefore, have numbered sections and subsections and a clear and full content page listing each heading. It follows that page numbering is important. Kinds of report. Report writing is a formal style of writing elaborately on a topic. The tone of a report is always formal. The important section to focus on is the target audience. For example, report writing about a school event, report writing about a business case, etc. Let us briefly discuss the different kinds of reports. Kinds of report writing and the brief introduction. All your facts and information presented in the report not only have to be bias-free, but also have to be 100% correct. Proofreading and the fact-checking is always what you do as a thumb rule before submitting a report. Reports are written with much analysis. The purpose of report writing is essential to inform the reader about a topic minus one's opinion on the topic. It's simply a portrayal of facts as it is. Even if one gives inferences, solid analysis, charts, tables and data is provided. Mostly it is specified by the person who is asked for the report whether they would like to take or not if that is the case. In many cases, what's required is your suggestions for a specific case after a factual report. That depends on why are you writing the report and who are you writing it for in the first place. Knowing your audience motive for asking for that report is very, very important as it sets the course of the facts focused on your report. Based on some special characteristics, a report can be a certain kind. Why classify them in kinds? Well, depending upon the purpose of the report, it's always best to know what kind would be the best for that case. For example, informal reports in office formal context may not be suitable. In that case, even if your report is on point and the best, just the structure or format or language could work against your report. Small things like that should not stand in the way of you conveying your point, and thus, for these reasons and more, let's dive into the kinds of reports that exist so we can make clear decisions of their usage. Types of reports and their explanation. Long report and short reports. These kind of reports are quite clear, as the name suggests. A 2-page report, or sometimes referred to a memorandum, is short and a 30-page report is absolutely long. But what makes a clear division of short reports or long reports? Well, usually notice that longer reports are generally written in a formal manner. Internal and external reports. As the name suggests, an internal report stays within a certain organization or group of people. In the case of office settings, internal reports are for the within the organization. We prepare external reports such as news reports in the newspaper about an incident or the annual reports of companies for distribution outside the organization. We call these as public reports. Vertical and lateral reports. This is about the hierarchy of the report's ultimate target. If the report is for your management or for your mentee, it is a vertical report. Wherever a direction of upward or downwards come into motion, we call it a vertical report. Lateral reports, on the other side, assist in coordination in the organization. A report traveling between units of the same organization level. For example, a report amongst the administration and finance department is lateral. Periodic reports. Periodic reports are sent out on regular pre-scheduled dates. In most cases, the direction is upward and serves as management control. Some, like annual reports, is not vertical but is a government mandate to be periodic in nature. That is why we have annual or quarterly or half-yearly reports. If they are this frequent, it only makes sense to preset the structure of these reports and just fill in the data every period. That's exactly what happens in most cases too. Formal and informal reports. Formal reports are meticulously structured. They focus on objectivity and organization, contain deeper details, and the writer must write them in a style that eliminates factors like personal pronouns. Informal reports are usually short messages with free-flowing casual use of language. We generally describe the internal report or memorandum as an informal report. For example, a report amongst your peers or a report for your small group of team, etc. Informational and analytical reports. Informational reports, which is attendance report, annual budget reports, monthly financial reports as such, carry objective information from one area of an organization to maybe a larger system. Analytical reports, which is scientific research, feasibility report and employee appraisals, show attempts to solve actual problems. These analytical reports usually require suggestions at the end. Proposal reports. These kinds of reports are like an extension to the analytical problem-solving reports. A proposal is a document one prepares to describe how one organization can provide a solution to a problem they are facing. There is usually always a need to prepare a report in a business setup. The end goal is usually very solution oriented. We call such kinds of report as proposal reports. Functional reports. These kind of reports including marketing reports, financial reports, accounting reports and a spectrum of other reports that provide a function specifically. By and large, we can include almost all reports in most of these categories. Furthermore, we can include a single report in several kinds of reports. 4 main steps of report writing. The steps are: number 1, defining the problem and the purpose. Number 2, zeroing in on the problem. Number 3, developing the statement of purpose. And number 4, identifying issues for investigation. Step 1, defining the problem and the purpose. Research studies often have both a statement and a problem and a statement of the purpose. For example, a real estate appraiser accepts a client's request to appraise a building to determine its market value. The problem is to arrive at a fair market value for the property. Step 2, zeroing in on the problem. To determine the precise nature of the problem, explore your report assignment using these questions. Number 1, what needs to be determined? Number 2, why is the issue important? Number 3, who is involved in the situation? Number 4, where is the trouble located? Number 5, when did it start? Number 6, how did the situation originate? These questions are not applicable to all the situations, but asking them helps you clarify the boundaries of your investigation. You can then draft a written statement of the problem being investigated, which will serve as a guide to what are you trying or to solve what questions are you trying to answer in the report. Assume, for instance, that you want to study the salaries of office support staff. Imagine the scope of such a task. Millions of people are employed in office support jobs, and perhaps 1,000 or so jobs fall into this classification. Step 3, developing the statement of purpose. Once you have asked some preliminary questions and determined the problem, you are ready to write a clear statement of purpose that defines the objective of the report. In contrast to the statement of the problem, which defines only what are you going to investigate, the statement of purpose defines what the report should accomplish. In the case of an informational report, you might state your purpose by saying, purpose, to find out our office support staff salaries and to understand whether they are competitive and consistent. However, for an analytical report, your statement of purpose might be, purpose, to identify the difference between the salaries of our office support staff and those of office support staff in other local banks. Analyze its effect on service delivery and recommend ways for countering its negative effects. As you would have observed, problem and purpose statements often have to be combined in one statement. That is why the terms problem and purpose are often used interchangeably. Before you proceed with a report, double check your statement of purpose with the person who authorized you or requested the report. Step 4. Identifying issues for investigation. Once you have defined the problem and established the purpose of the study, you are ready to begin your investigation. To do so, you have to identify the areas that needs to be investigated. This can be done by breaking down the purpose into its related aspects. Assume that you have been asked to select a personal computer from amongst 3 alternative models, the alpha, the beta and the gamma. The purpose of your study is to select the computer that will best serve the record keeping and word processing needs of a small office. To choose the most suitable PC, you clearly need to investigate certain areas: the needs of the office, the capabilities of each PC and the cost involved. You may even have to try each PC personally or get some of the office staff to try the PCs and give you that feedback. A variety of different types of research is clearly involved. Of course, the more complex the problem and the purpose, the more the number of areas that needs to be investigated. Investigating and solving the problem, however, is only one part of the task. Now, you have to present it persuasively and clearly to your audience. Structuring the report. The key feature of the reports is that they are formally structured in sections. The use of sections makes it easy for the reader to jump straight to the information they need. Understanding the function of each section will help you to structure your information and use the correct writing style. Reports for different briefs require different sections, so always check carefully any instructions you have been given. Title. The title needs to concisely state the topic of the report. It needs to be informative and descriptive so that someone just reading the title will understand the main issue of the report. You don't need to include excessive detail in your title, but avoid being vague and too general. Abstract. It is also called the summary or executive summary. This is the shop window for your report. It is the first and sometimes the only section to be read and should be the last to be written. It should enable the reader to make an informed decision about whether they want to read the whole report. The length will depend on the extent to which the report has been written, but it is usually a paragraph or two and always less than a page. Introduction. It is also known as background or context. In this section, you explain the rationale for undertaking the work reported on, including what you have been asked for or chosen to do, the reasons for doing it, and the background of the study. It should be written in an explanatory style. State what the report is all about. What is the question you are trying to answer? If it is a brief for a specific reader, for example, a feasibility report on a construction project for a client, say who they are. Describe your starting point and the background to the subject. For instance, what research has already been done? If you have been asked to include a literature survey later in the report, you only need to brief outline of previous research in the introduction. What are the relevant themes and issues? Why are you being asked to investigate it now? Literature survey, also called literature review or survey review of the research. This is a survey of publications, which is books, journals, authoritative websites, sometimes conference papers as well, reporting work that has already been done on the topic of the report. It should only include studies that have direct relevance to the topic. A literature survey should be written like an essay in a discursive style, with an introduction, main discussion grouped in themes and a conclusion. Introduce your review by explaining how you went about finding your materials and any clear trends in research that have emerged. Group your text in themes. Write about each theme as separate section, giving a critical summary of each piece of work and showing its relevance to your research. Conclude with how the review has informed your research, things you will be building on, gaps you will be filling, etc. Methods. It is also known as methodology. You need to write your methods section in such a way that the reader could replicate the research you have done. There should be no ambiguity here, so you need to write it in a very factual, informative style. Results. It is also known as data or findings. This section has only one job, which is to present the findings of the research as simply and clearly as possible. Use the format that will achieve the most effectively. For example, text, graphs, tables or diagrams. When deciding on a graphical format to use, think about how the data will look to the reader. Choose just one format. Don't repeat the same information and, for instance, a graph and a table. Label your graphs and tables clearly. Give each figure a title and describe in words what the figure demonstrates. Writing in this section should be clear, factual and informative. Save your interpretation of the results for the discussion section. Discussion. This is probably the longest section and worth spending time on. It brings everything together, showing how your findings respond to the brief you explained in your introduction and the previous research you surveyed in the literature survey. It should be written in a discursive style, meaning you need to discuss not only what your findings show, but why they show this, using evidence from previous research to back up your explanations. This is also the place to mention if there were any problems. For instance, if your results were different from expectation, you couldn't find your important data, or you had to change your method or participants, and how they were or could have been solved. Conclusion. Your conclusion should be short section with no new arguments or evidence. Sum up the main points of your research. How do they answer the original brief for the work reported on? This section may include recommendation for the action, suggestions for further research references, which is also known as reference list or bibliography. Appendices. The appendices hold an additional information that may help the reader but is not essential to the report's main findings. Anything that adds value. That might include, for instance, interview questions, raw data, or a glossary of terms used. Label all appendices and refer to them where appropriate in the main text. For example, see Appendix A for an example questionnaire. Having learnt the report format and types, we would now end the session by summing it up. We understood reports and its types, format of a report. We also understood steps to writing a report and how to structure a report. I hope you enjoyed the session. Thank you and see you soon.